Okay, thanks, Mike. We'll just offer a quick introduction. So Mike got connected with him through, well, he's been involved with ministry at Notre Dame and in different capacities over the years, and has been been in ministry since 1984 and full-time ministry. Mike, how long? 20 years or?
Well, full-time ministry, high school for 6, diocesan for 13, and now as an independent Catholic speaker for the last 17. So
okay, so most of that time, yeah. So he's been yes, he's been in full-time ministry and been doing his own work as an entrepreneur and in a lot of different settings, you know, high school, parishes, at University of Notre Dame, and so it's very familiar with just the broad Catholic ministry landscape, and is very vivacious and energetic, and brings a lot of humor into his sessions, his forum, and his presentations. Also wrote a book. This was not in the brochure, which he very kindly sent me, and can't see it. Well, there we go. And so I think some of his talk today will be from lessons learned over all these years of how really to keep the ministry going and fresh, and you know, to avoid things that are going to, you know, destroy it in different ways. And so we're just really grateful for you being here, Mike, for your experience, being willing to share all these lessons that you've learned over the years.
Forget about the price.
That was a good transition.
Forget about the price. Ignatius says something like that.
Yeah. This is providential. So Mike, welcome. We'll kick it off to you, and then we'll go around for some Q&A afterwards.
Well, I appreciate it, and I appreciate everybody who's actually zooming in today on July the 6th, since you're not zoomed out. So I'm going to share my screen in just a second and kind of go through a very rapid kind of, let's do this, see if I can do this, slideshow, start from the beginning. There we go. All right. So as John said, my name is Mike Patin, 60 years old in April, and have been working in some capacity for the church all my life, all my professional life. I live in Lafayette, Louisiana, but for the last 17 years have traveled all across the country, everything from parish missions, leadership seminars, days of reflection for ministers, etc., etc., etc. If it's Catholic, I'll do it. And when the phone rings, I go. So mainly across North America, Canada, etc. That's not the important thing. The important thing is I've made a lot of mistakes. And one mistake I'm going to make is I'm going to try to put 40 minutes into 20 minutes of time. You don't want to hear me talk. Please pretend this is a huge garage sale. Mingle about. If there's something that you like, take it, bend it, use it for something else. I just want to share with you just some things that I've learned in the 20 years of ministry, things that nobody told me at the beginning that I really wish they had. I read a book called The Sense of the Call by Marva Dawn, mainly about Sabbath and self-care. And she is a phenomenal woman, a Protestant who has coached and trained ministers for years. Great book, dry as a cracker. But in one sentence, in the beginning, this is not the main point of her book, but in one sentence, in the preface of her book, she said something. And you ever hear something on a retreat or at Mass, or you read something like, ding, 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 this was it. She said, I'm writing this book about Sabbath because these are 5 things I worry about. And I'm like, bingo, you hit it. And I've been in ministry, I guess, 10, 15 years at this point. And I want to go through these very quickly with you for about 15 minutes, talk to you about what they are, where I experienced them, and what I believe the antidotes are for you and your apostolates, because you're very diverse. Congratulations on being one of the finalists for OSV. Congratulations for listening to the Spirit's promptings to want to do something for the church and make a living. I believe that's very much needed in this new Pentecost, especially since the church in the world is changing with COVID and so much more. So you can see on the screen the 5 things: overburdens, institutional obstacles, misunderstandings of our call, the failure to set limits, and the lack of genuine support. These 5 things will suck the life out of you. We can teach you theology. We can teach you business logistics. We can teach you pastoral planning. This stuff, very few people talk to you about and talk to me about. So let's get to work. I took those 5 things and I wrote chapters and put them in a book in 2012. It's a poorly written book, written in 6 weeks, but it was what I wanted to tell ministry people. And it was called This Was Not in the Brochure. Boom. Overburdens. A friend of mine, Bob McCarty, simply puts it this way: the leading cause of burnout in ministry professionals is either multiple or unclear expectations. And I've added unreasonable expectations. Notice, it's not theology, it's not ecclesiology that burns people out. It's expectations. Multiple expectations. When I was in a school leading retreats, the students had expectations. This better not suck. The faculty had expectations. Could you please reinforce the doctrinal material we're covering? The principal had expectations. Nobody better die. The parents had expectations. Could you unite them as a class? Yeah, you've had 11 years. I get 6 hours. Done, baby. Got that. You throw all that in a hopper, and I had these ideas about Jesus and a community called the church. I'm not going to please everybody. And it's amazing how much weight and mental energy people's expectations absorb in my brain. Who are the audiences you're trying to please? Whose expectations? And then you've got the unclear expectations. I worked for a pastor. Whenever I'd present an idea, he'd go, "Oh, that's interesting." And I'm like, fired up, baby. I got his ear. I'm the new guy. We're going with something new. And I went to the staff meeting and like, "Well, what did he tell you?" I said, "He said, that's interesting." They said, "That's the kiss of death." When he doesn't know what to say, instead of telling you no, he says, "That's interesting." Sometimes we don't talk the way we want to talk with people. "Hey, honey, where do you want to go to eat?" "Oh, it doesn't matter." "Chinese?" "No, I had Chinese for lunch." "Mexican?" "No, that gives me heartburn." "Well, yeah. "Well, where do you want to go eat?" "It doesn't matter." Yes, it matters. But sometimes we play hit and miss. We don't say what we mean. Are you really going out dressed like that? Tell me I look like a clown, but we don't do that. And ministry people are even worse for that stuff. But all of a sudden, some of you are old enough to know the old plate spinner kind of thing. People would, Johnny Carson, Ed Sullivan, there'd be somebody who would spin a plate on a thin wooden dowel and get it started, and then he'd start another one, and another one, and another one. Then you'd have to come back and spin this one so it doesn't fall. A lot of times that's what ministry has felt like. I've got to do this project, and I've got to do this. And then the pastor or somebody else says, "Oh, I need you to do this." And I didn't even start it, but I got to keep it going. And I'm running from one to the other. And after a while, that just wears on me. And in this church we're in, we're finding professionals having to do more with less and keeping more plates spinning. And I think even in the apostolate that you're wanting to begin and continue operating, that can be true. Overburdens. Secondly, institutional obstacles. Working for the church, I love the church, but it is a faulted organization. I'm not talking as a vessel of God's grace. Whenever you have humans, where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there's bound to be conflict. I think Jesus said that. He didn't say it exactly in them words, but he did say, "I'm going to set mother against son," and then you got it. Pay and salary. I've met too many people who worked for Mama Church and they couldn't pay their bills. Sometimes people in the public sector are treated better from a business standpoint than sometimes employees of the church have been. The lack of job security. We're seeing that very clearly now in COVID. Many people who've given 20, 29, 30 years, there's just not the financial resources. They're furloughed or they're let go. Paperwork and bureaucracy. Oh my goodness, the bigger the organization, the slower she moves. It takes 10 forms to get this done or that done. And there's red tape. Don't get me wrong, I love the church. I have given my life in working for the church in one way, shape, or form, but sometimes, holy cow, there's some bureaucracy. And sometimes, I just want to say, can't we all just get along? But man, the church labels conservative, moderate, progressive, devotional, charismatic, Eucharistic, Marian. We can slap labels like nobody's business. And sometimes we're mistrusted just because we don't do Catholic just like the next person. Sometimes the institution can be part of our challenge to do the ministry we believe we're called to. Thirdly, mistaken assumptions about our call. I misread Jesus often and badly. Not proud to say it, but it's truth. God expects martyrdom. I love when I get ministry people together. Oh, how you doing? Oh, I'm so busy. It's like it's a litany of the oppressed. People try to see who can complain and have the biggest or better complaint. Oh, you share an office with the director of religious ed? I have a rolling cart with only 3 wheels. And they said next year I could requisition for the 4th wheel. My pastor's the king of the village idiots. You know, it's like we want to compare who's got it worse. Like Jesus is going to love us more if we suffer. And we love to show people. And a lot of times we do that because we haven't gotten the affirmation and the support that we need, which will come up in a second. God expects full-time ministry. Never, ever say no. You have to say yes always. One of my favorite pieces, and I can send this to the John Cannon and John Henry later, it's just a listing. It's called When Jesus Said No. And it's a list in Scripture when Jesus said no. Hey, can we sit at your right and your left? No. Hey, we want to make you king of the village. No. Hey, and it's just a list in Scripture when Jesus said no. But sometimes we believe as ministry people, we're always supposed to say yes. Thirdly, God is concerned with numbers. See, that's where you're going to be in attention as entrepreneurs, because there's the bottom line, making a profit, paying the bills. And then there's a spiritual side. One of my friends, Frank Mercadante, wrote a book called Growing Teen Disciples. My favorite chapter in the book is called The Driving Forces of Youth Ministry. And one of those driving forces is driven by numbers. Driven by numbers. He goes, if you judge Jesus by the numbers, he wasn't always too hot. On Free Fish Friday, there were 5,000. On Good Friday, his mama and John. It wasn't always about the numbers. Sometimes Jesus's best ministry was one-on-one. But sometimes I take the expectations of pastors or diocesan officials and make them my own, and then I feel I'm not as good a Jesus person. That's a tension. And it's sometimes a mistaken assumption I have that Jesus is only worried about my numbers. And last but not least, that Jesus only sees me in terms of my role as a minister. You know, I have friends of mine who will call me and get on the phone and it's like, hey, holy boy, we haven't played cards in a while. You finished saving the world? Why don't you bring your money? We need saving too. We'll play some cards, we'll drink, we'll talk trash. I'm not just a minister. I'm a dad. I'm a grandfather. I'm a friend. And first of all, I'm supposed to be a disciple and a student before I'm an apostle who goes out. sometimes I have expectations and assumptions that even Jesus Christ does not have for me. And that's been part of my sin in getting myself knotted way too much in this ministry. Number 4, failure to set limits. Love this tombstone. It's not really my tombstone, but you can get it on, I believe, www.tombstonebuilder.com. But anyway, it's like, look at me. Let me show you how much I suffer for the kingdom. Let me run the copy machine as hard as I can. Run the copy machine, run the copy machine, run the copy machine. Don't add toner. Run the copy machine, run the copy machine, run the copy machine. Don't do maintenance. Run the copy machine, run the copy machine, run the copy machine. What's going to happen to the copy machine? It's going to break at the worst possible time. My brothers and sisters, let me make it point blank clear. You the copy machine. And there are limits. I'm a human being. And I'm not a human doing. I know you've heard that cliche phrase, but man, sometimes it's time to stop. That's why God put the Sabbath. Not because everything was done. It's time to stop and replenish. I juice off of adrenaline. Ooh, I like to pull off the impossible. Ooh, I do my best work at the last minute. No, you just rationalize procrastination. That's what you did. Everybody has some of them moments, but sometimes it's like, ooh, let me see how much I can do. And then there's the perfectionism. Oh, I ran these off and there was a typo, so I'm going to rerun them off again. Oh, this name tag for the retreat doesn't have the logo. And the teenagers don't care about the logo. Give them a magic marker. Go home. But sometimes I haven't done that because of my own perfectionism. And then I try to believe my own press clippings. Oh, you were so awesome. Oh, you still did? Yeah, ask the people I love. One time I took an article that a diocesan paper had wrote. Mike Patin's style is a cross between Chris Rock and Jeff Foxworthy. And it was a nice article, right? So I put the article on the breakfast table where my family can ever so ostensibly notice it. And my daughter looks at it and nods. She goes, hey, Dad. I'm like, yeah, baby. She goes, you ain't that funny. See, sometimes I believe my press clippings. And I forget that I'm a work in progress, a disciple in progress. And I keep wanting to push myself to newer, higher, more. And I wonder what that's about. I wonder when it's going to be enough. And number 5, click, lack of genuine support. Nobody knows the trouble I've seen. Nobody knows my sorrow. I love moaning and complaining about, oh, as a Catholic speaker, my life is over because there ain't no more gatherings. There ain't no more churches that have money to spend X $1,000 to bring in a Catholic speaker. And sometimes I like feeling that I'm this martyr who doesn't have any support. And the truth of the matter is, as entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, it's very important, and I know they're hitting this up with you at other angles from the little bit I've been told about this program. You need to have your own personal board of directors. I don't mean for the ministry. I mean for you, the person. Who's on team, Mike? Spiritual director? Good friends, persons of accountability, life coaches, spiritual companions, prayer team. I have a prayer team. For probably 10 of the last 17 years, maybe, no, probably more closer to 15, I've had 2 people across the country pray for me each month. I send them a calendar. Here's where I'm going to be. Here's the intention I'd like you to pray for. I have a youth minister I have a phone call with every week, come hell, high water. I have a prayer companion who want 4 to 6 weeks. We talk about real life and stuff. We talk about that stuff, and then, hey, that's the 3rd time you bring this up. Have you brought that to prayer? And we pray with one another. I have a spiritual director. I have a counselor. I don't think I'm a whack job, but sometimes I get knotted so much I can't sort stuff out. I know a little bit about do-it-yourself plumbing, but every once in a while there's a clog that's way too big for me. Doesn't mean that I'm lazy. It means I need help or else the whole house is going to stink. I think it's very important as you begin or continue these apostolates that you are very point blank and intentional about who's on team you or team your ministry, your apostolate. Those are the 5 overburdens. Whose expectations are you living out of? Which audience have expectations of you, and which one will you accept and which one won't you? Overburdens. Institutional obstacles. How to know who you're working with. How to know how the game is played. You're going to be working with dioceses, parishes, ministers, individuals. There's things about how those operations work you need to know. Misunderstandings of our call. What do you believe Jesus Christ wants and expects for you, not from you? Sit with that question in prayer. Not what does Jesus expect from me? What does Jesus want for me? Number 4, failure to set limits. Knowing when it's time to stop. Prioritizing your actions, not saying yes to everything. And number 5, who do you surround yourself with support? Jesus sent them out 2 by 2 for a reason, because he knew that the journey would break even some of the strongest souls. Those are my 5 things real quick, like in a nutshell, and I'm going to quit sharing my screen and somebody can facilitate question and answers, blah, 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 blah. Thanks for listening. It's a garage sale. Take what you like. Blah, blah.
Mike, that was awesome. Thank you. Yeah, that was great. That was great. A lot of good insights rooted in your experience there, and wake up call, I think, in a lot of areas. Just to dig into these a little bit more, Mike. How, like, one thing I think about, for the people in this group are pretty early on in developing their apostolate and their work. Optimally, or hopefully, you're more steady state at some point where, balance, but like getting something off the ground can often mean like a big push, or, some people use the analogy of it's a harvest season. I got to get the harvest in, so we can eat. How do you think about that? Like, you probably had different new beginnings in your journey. Advice for, things like overburden or failure to set limits when you got to just get it done and get it off the ground.
Number 1, I'm not trying to be cliched. Number 1, pray about the priorities. What am I really trying to accomplish? Number 2, get as much help as you can. So, for example, what led me to leave diocesan work to go solo was a heart attack, because I was failing to set limits in a diocesan structure. Genetics was number 1 for that. Number 2 was the lovely diet of a youth minister of donuts for breakfast, burgers for lunch, and pizza for supper. And let me serve the 144 churches of the Archdiocese in New Orleans. How to prioritize it and who helps you. So when I was making the shift from diocesan guy to speaker boy, I sent out, here's my dream, to 10 people, 5 of them churchy, 5 of them not churchy. And all 10 gave me a great piece of advice. Go with who brought you to the dance. In other words, let everybody you know what you want to do, and let them speak for you and help you spread the word and build this thing, whichever way they can. Referral, word of mouth, get on the phone, advocate for me. So I do know that some of the business point, I was never strong in the business. The fact that I did this for 17 years with no business plan, business manager, company behind me blows me away in hindsight. But I do think the prayer piece, the priority piece, and who's going to help me get the word out that I'm not harvesting by myself. One last thought on that, John. I always use this phrase. In the Acts of the Apostles, Peter and John were busted for preaching Jesus' name, and they brought them all before the Sanhedrin. And they're like, we whipped these cats. What else are we going to do? And they dismiss Peter and John, and they start arguing. The Sanhedrin argues among themselves. And Gamaliel, one of the Sanhedrin, gets up and says, boys, we've been through this before. And then there's this powerful line he uses. If this is of mere human origin, it's going to fall flat on its face. But if this is of divine origin and we go against it, we may find ourselves fighting God himself. I've always tried to apply that to the ministry initiatives I've been a part of. If this is of mere human origin, it's likely going to fall flat on its face. If there's not some rooting in prayer, and when I say prayer, I don't mean just talking to God waiting for the voice. Let me bounce this off some trusted individuals, both churchy and businessy, who can help me go push for it. If it's of human origin, it's probably going to fall. If it's of divine origin, it's gonna find its way and its place. If that was too vague, folks, give me a more pinpointed question.
Well, we got a few here. So from Karina from My Prayer Corner. Karina, do you want to ask your question to Mike?
Hello, I'm Karina. So my question is, you were talking about
Also in Louisiana, by the way. Sorry.
Yes, I'm in Covington.
God love you. I went to. You can see behind me. I went to St. Ben, St. Joseph's.
Awesome, that's my parish.
There you go.
So my question was, a lot of people choose martyrdom just because of the urgency of launching their new initiative in the church. So not so much that we crave doing everything by ourselves and killing ourselves, but that there's a need and a need now. And so how do you know how to set the limits in the launching of, like, okay, you need to take a breath right now and slow down for a minute, instead of constantly thinking, like, if I don't have it out yesterday, 6 kids aren't praying that could have been praying. So that is my question.
Forgive the cliche. Jesus didn't get it all done in 3 years. Hence, I call it the theology of the assumption. That's why we're still here. I believe there are people he met on the journey in the Gospels. And in the Gospels, the rich young man turns away sad. And I do think prioritizing what's legitimate, because I'm not just this ministry machine. It's a tension between the passion for souls and a lifelong journey. But now you good folks have just added financial, fiscal success in that too. So now the pot becomes thicker. And there's always going to be this tension between the two. So I really do believe this group of people to say, Karina, I love you, darling, but you're trying to do too much. Let's shoot for these 4 target audiences, and let's get these 2 or 3 initiatives. And in 3 months, we reset the goals. We either continue, we modify, we drop, we go get a new. But sometimes doing that all up in here, you know, this morning's gospel, Jesus heals the lady, the hemorrhage, and raises the little girl. The crowd, Jesus told the crowd, go away. Here's what I got in my prayer. He's telling the voice in my head, go away. I'd like a little bit of room in there to help guide you on what this is you want to do. You got a lot of stuff going. And I love the fact that you're so passionate, but you better have some wisdom figures who kind of help you say, okay.
Narrow it in.
Not only that, I mean, there were times Jesus had to say no. They kept bringing more and more people to heal. He's like, my mission is Jerusalem. I got to go. I got to keep moving. I got to keep moving. So it's a both and. Again, you're talking to a ministry guy, not a finance guy. But I've been blessed that I had some people who were like, dude, you got to raise your fees. dude, you can't do this many or you're going to drop dead. You know, so I had people who loved me enough to be like, come on back to center. Come here. What's wrong with you? Yeah. And by the way, folks, Mike Patin at yahoo.com. If this is too vague and you want to get more, I'm happy to talk to anybody. I don't have all the answers, but we can talk back and forth, especially if you're in Louisiana. Jay. Yeah.
Great. So we have also a question from Jay Lampert. Do you want to?
Yeah, so I'm muted? No, okay, I'm on. So it's interesting. This is kind of unrelated to the work I'm doing now, but years ago, when I came back into the church, I started an apostolate. And it was really meant to be this it's a very, very sensitive topic. And I ended up writing a book and spending all these hours doing, after I get home from my full-time job. And my intention was truly, I felt like, I owed my life to the church, and this is something I want to give. But it sort of died on the vine because there was no promotion. I didn't have a team. I didn't have a board of directors to drive it. And I felt like there was a lot of competition within this arena, which I felt was just kind of odd. I thought, wow, I guess I was still in the honeymoon phase, and I thought, well, church is different. No, it operates like anything else. It's dysfunctional in that regard. And, now it's just dying on the vine. So I guess my question is like, how, and if you're the one pouring yourself into the ministry and you have absolutely no time and no resources to devote to actually blowing it up or getting it out to people who are going to hear it without burning out, if you don't have anyone that versus.
Am I the only one that is hearing Jay break up?
Yeah, Jay, you're breaking up a little bit, man.
We kind of even lost you, Jay. All right, you're spotty.
Hello?
I lost you right as you got to the question, my brother. It might be best.
Sorry about that. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm at work. I'll message you the quick because I'm at work and like the Wi-Fi is really bad here.
Well,
I
maybe
can hear
just
you
state the
fine, but I
question.
guess I'm breaking up.
It's good now. Maybe just say the question. You were saying something about burning out, and yeah.
Well, yeah. So so let's say, for example, you're the person with the vision, and you form the apostolate, and you're trying to get the message out, but again, you lack the time and the resources to grow it into a financial institution that's going to sustain itself. What I've learned is it just dies on the vine. So again, how do you follow those 5 principles if your intention is just to it's just to do the work and get the apostolate out, but like, again, not get involved in all the bureaucratic stuff? Like, how do you find that balance?
First of all, drop the word balance. There's no such thing. There is no such thing. It's a myth. A spiritual director told me that years ago. The word is tension. Try to find healthier tensions. There's always going to be a tension. If you're doing the ministry right, you're going to feel like you're neglecting your family. If you're doing your family right, you're neglecting it's a tension. And I asked my spiritual director, okay, great, I'll use healthy tensions. When do the tensions go away? He goes, about a half hour after they lay your cold body in the grave. Yeah, so tension. Jay, it's a great question, and I wish I had all the answers, because if I did, I'd be selling that book, and y'all would all be successful and da-da-da-da. Number one, you're right about competition. There have been. We're speaking, da-da-da-da, from the days of the early church. The apostles, James and John, want to sit at the right hand of Jesus. Paul, Apollos, da-da-da. Oh, well, I belong to Paul. Ooh, I belong to Apollos. Yeah. Right. Okay. What do you do when you don't have a lot? You got a mustard seed. That's a good thing. Well, then who do you surround yourself with if you believe the vision is meant to be? Who are the essential conversations? What are the questions about money, about resources, about time? How do you create it? And again, going back to Karina's question, do you scale it back? Do you modify it? Do you hand it to someone else? There have been a couple of times I've done that. Oh, I really want to see this place where ministers get together and share. Here's what I'm reading, where I don't have to read the whole dang book. Somebody went and took that and did an interview series and all of a sudden put it in Youth Worker Journal. And I'm like, I could have made a mint off of that. But I didn't have the time or the resources. And not every good idea is mine to populate. So sometimes it means hatching it and giving it to somebody else. To me, and trust me, at different points of the journey, I realized I need an accountant. I need to talk to an accountant. At different points of the journey, I needed to talk to different entrepreneurs about, okay, talk to me about this website thing. How much of your business is driven by that compared to personal referrals? I don't have a business mind, but I knew I had to get some people who know my energy level. And like, that boy is never going to go develop his own website. So here's a college student in town who gets ministry, who for less than what you'd pay an official web developer would help you do that. But you do need a web presence. So without being silly, it was like, what are the obstacles? Who are the people I know who know other people who can help me brainstorm to move forward? Again, who I'm surrounding myself with in the issues: legal, financial, web. I don't know them all, but you've got people like John Cannon and John Henry who know some of that stuff. And the people at OSV, the people at Notre Dame Idea Center, all right, tell me who you know. But always start with who brought you to the dance. You and I know people who do money. And sometimes they won't buy into the vision, but we've got to try to help them see that this is worth supporting, even if they're going to pray for us. So for me, it really is trying to narrow my focus, listing what the obstacles are, listing the areas, and then brainstorming, who do I know? That may not, and Jay, we may have to do some more, because I know we're on a tight time frame, and I'll talk a dog off a meat wagon. So, yeah.
Well, that's a good image, dog on the meat wagon. That's great. A couple questions here. So, one, do you have this question came in, do you have tips for, quote unquote, letting people down, easy if people, ask things of you or want things of you, but you don't have time or it's not a good fit in the priorities, how to communicate that and maintain the relationship?
I suck at it, but I'll tell you a couple of things I've learned. Number one, to legitimize that what they're asking for is a legitimate need. That's the first thing. To affirm that their expectation or need. So for the parents, I am so excited. The image I used earlier, parents want, let's unite the teenagers as a class. That is a worthwhile goal. It is a worthwhile expectation. 6 hours will not do that. If you want to do community building days, I will be glad to meet with a group of moms to teach you all how to do that. I cannot take another thing on my plate. I'll give you another one. This is an unreasonable expectation. A pastor expected his coordinator of youth ministry to be at every single event done in the name of the church for young people. If young people were going to be doing something for the church, she had to be there. Huge mega parish. And 9 months in, she went to the pastor and said, I need your help. I understand you want me there because you're very protective of our property and you know I'm organized and logistic and this and that. Get it. But you either need to pay my hospital bill or pay for my divorce lawyer. Because I cannot. I'm going to drive myself crazy and I'm going to lose my marriage if you want me physically on site. The fact that you want it done a certain way is not a bad expectation, Father, to expect one person to do it. And she had to have a hard conversation, but because she had won the trust in the relationship, she could now say, good expectation. Can I come up with a counter where it's not everything falling on me? Can I make sure that I train these in the areas that you're worried about? That they call me before they call you, so you're not getting 10 people who you don't know calling you? And they finally worked it out. But it takes acknowledge, number one, state your position why this is a challenge for you, and then 3, offer them some possibilities to get the need met. This morning, I had someone call me, would you do our faculty, it's my high school alma mater, would you do our high school faculty day of reflection? You did it last year. Our speaker we had scheduled said he can't do it. And I'm like, I'm not sure. I'm not sure how I feel about walking into a building a month from now. But I love you. I love this community. And I see what you want to do. Virtual. What are the physical possibilities? I'm not saying no, but I'm not saying yes. But let me give you some other people who might jump at it and say yes. And number 4, if that doesn't happen, how do I help you build it? Because I still don't feel comfortable walking in that building right now. So it's not a flat no. It's like, that's legit, but that don't mean I have to say yes. But honor them first, state your position why, and see what negotiation, and help them. You know, Jesus, great Jesus line, you Pharisees, you put heavy burdens on people's backs and you never lift a finger to help them lift it. So it's like, no, I don't want to do it. I never want to be that guy. I never want to be that guy. I can still be firm. I want to say Steven Covey said this. Maturity is where courage meets consideration. I want to be both of those things. If there's an expectation I don't think I can meet, I want to be courageous enough not to be a doormat, but I want to be considerate enough not to be a jerk and cold-hearted. Because Jesus did it. Jesus said no. He didn't heal everybody. He didn't become king when it, sometimes that's my mystery to Jesus. And I hope that answered some of that question for you.
Yeah, that was great. Some anecdotes and some specific concrete steps that you can think about when engaged in that tension. Another question here from Anna Carter. Do you feel comfortable you saying the question you had? Great.
Sure. Yeah. And thank you for that. That was very practical. I really appreciated that. And my other question is, how have you adapted your speaking strategies in a post-COVID world? You made a joke earlier about just this reality that the world of Catholic speaking is changing, and we're still getting invited in with my ministry to do some speaking. We're also asked about digital stuff, and I would just be interested to hear, especially since that is your main, we do a few other things, it's not our main thing, but since it's your main thing, I'd be really interested to hear, what do you do about that? Or how have you adapted that?
Poorly, to be quite honest. No, Anna, I've done it 17 years. I do believe that this will be the end of this being the way I earn my salary full time. And I'll tell you my reasoning. This is not to cast aspersions on the church. Number one, I don't believe churches are going to have the finances to bring in a person like myself. That's number one. Number two, gatherings. Gatherings are going to look different. I'm not saying I'm not going to be a witness for the faith. I just don't think it'll be full-time travel anymore. I'm blessed that I have a little cushion financially, that I'm not worried about paying the bills next month. I'm not rich. Let me explain something to you. Didn't get rich doing this. Number two, I cannot retire. But I have enough of a cushion to wait 6 months or so and let the world resume before I start figuring out what next. And so I really believe I'm on a little sabbatical. I am trying to practice the very advice I shared with all of you, to call some of those closest figures to me and say, all right, here's numbers. Here's where I feel joy and juice. And I may have to do something else to pay the bills and still find an outlet for this spiritual passion. So I may this fall, once if the world turns to an upright position, I may go work at Walmart and help my son-in-law coach his 8th grade basketball team while I pray, while I discern, while I take a few virtual or a few weekend if travel gets safer, while I discern it. But I'm in a very different space and situation. But I am having to figure out the printed medium, the digital medium, and how much I'm willing to learn and sacrifice. And again, that big question, Jesus, what do you want for me? Not what do you want from me? What do you want for me? And I want you to try to keep being somebody for others while you figure out how you pay your bills, buddy. I know it's not a great answer. I'm probably behind the curve. There are definitely some speaking ministries that are much more assertive. I'm considering it a blessing that I have a little bit of a sabbatical. And I don't know all the answers yet. I'm just trying to frame the right questions, Anna, to be quite honest with you. I'm just trying to frame the right questions. At least y'all got these good people from the Idea Center and John Henry. At least you got those good people. They can help you with that stuff too. So,
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Another question here. The question is, does this sound right for ministry? Let your yes be yes and your no be maybe, just not now. And my understanding is that's not exactly what you were saying. Like, if you do say no to someone, then validate it, but then also, be constructive and help with them, maybe propose some alternatives. But, there might be a no in that. And I guess a maybe might be another option too. So maybe there's three possibilities there. Is that right?
John, I would agree with you. Sometimes it is a no. I'll give you an example. Somebody, hey, would you come talk about theology on the body? I understand it. I'm not the best. Let me get you the best. I'm not the guy you want. No. Well, what if we paid you? No. I'm not the most comfortable. No. So sometimes no, let your no mean yes. Other times it's, and I had to learn this, when people give me a no, sometimes no means what Jay said, just not now. There have been times I've invited young people to come be a part of a mission trip experience, and they told me no. That doesn't mean never. Sometimes you will go to financiers to help support the ministry, and they'll say no. And sometimes that doesn't mean never. It may mean to try back in a year, But when we're giving the no, I think what John said, it's kind of important. If you know it's a no, don't lead them on. Validate, state your position, try to help them find alternatives. And they're like, well, you're not much help. That's not going to work. I'm like, let me take it to prayer. I'll get back to you. Stay firm in the no, but be like, I've thought of these other two, but that's about all I can come up with right now. Yeah. So, John, thanks for that clarification.
Any other, Mike? Any other, I don't know, example? You've seen a lot over the years. Are there, other, I don't know, stories in your journey you would have people trying to get off the ground with things that I think might be helpful to share?
It's not a personal one, but some of you have heard the illustration. And the details may be a little bit off, but someone was interviewing Thomas Edison, and they were talking with him about the light bulb. And the interviewer said, Dr. Edison, you had to get frustrated, huh? 1,152 failed experiments. before you landed on the light bulb. And Edison smiled and said, that's where we're different. For me, there was only one experiment. There were 1,152 steps. And with each failed step, I realized I had eliminated one errant possibility and was one step closer to the goal of my experiment. What I would say to you, friends, is what's your experiment about your relationship with Jesus and making a difference for the world and providing a livelihood for those you love, your families? Because there may be I tried this and it didn't work, so no, you didn't fail. You and I may have to take jobs that pay the salary and then find ways for that passion to keep being played, because it's always going to be part of the Jesus experiment, the Jesus relationship. Prepare yourself for hardship. I've been blessed for 17 years, but there have been ups and downs. There have been times, Mike, we'd love to have you come to Las Vegas for 2 days and we'll pay you $200. What? And this was a religious sister. And sister, I love you to death and I love the church to death. I cannot leave my family day 1 to fly, day 2 to speak, day 3 for $200. Can't do it, sister. And you must not love the Lord. You must not love the church. That hurts. That smacks, Jack. And that's from a nun. Sister, you took the vow of poverty, baby. I did not. I'm not trying to get rich, but dang. You know, so there are going to be hardships. There's going to be misunderstandings. The clarity of purpose. And when resistance and obstacles come, what's the Jesus experiment for you? And can you clearly name it? You know, Jay talked, I tried this apostolate and that didn't do it. The fact that Jay's on the call and trying something different tells me that the Jesus experiment is still at play. And mine's still at play. I have no idea where I will be 9 months from now. None. Zero. But some of the principles I talked about today, I know are solid. Because there'll be some things I may try that are errant. Well, at least I'm one step closer. I know that wasn't for me. What did I learn? What do we try differently the next time up? I wish I could have given you something, John, off the top of my head that was more personal, but when in doubt, use Thomas Edison and the light bulb.
No, that's a great story to keep in mind, and to, you know, encouragement when we're on step 820 and we don't see the light ahead, no pun intended. But
and in these days where no one quite does.
Right.
If we had this conversation 5 years ago, I would have been able to give you some very different frames. Now, everybody's playing the Acts of the Apostles now. The leader of the band, Jesus, is gone and the band is split up. And everybody's going in their community trying something new. And so the Holy Spirit is sending us out and asking us to kind of stay on the centerpiece while this is all trial and error. It truly is, even with all the good business principles. Because when it comes to church as an institution, as well as education, healthcare, and whatever, these are some very unfolding times. I don't like to use the word interesting because there's not a damn thing interesting about it to me. It's just, interesting is not the right word. It's something. So trial and error and conviction and good principle, while you've got the tension of financial and spiritual and organizational all converging, that need for the right support system is more critical now than it has ever been. So that would be my final advice. Who you surround yourself with as you experiment within your own Jesus experiment, critical.
Great. Well, thank you, Mike. We really appreciate your time and your just sharing your wisdom and experience with us. It's been a great blessing for all of us. We're really grateful. Thank you.
Mike Patin at yahoo.com. If I can ever be of any support, I don't have the answers, but we can tell stories and laugh and ask good questions to one another.
I think it's a good bit of the way there.